What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Iron Roots podcast, brought to you by Play. I'm your host, Zach Evnesh, and in this episode, I'm talking to you about one of those early days strongmen who would be in one of those traveling circuses from the early 1900s who used to wrestle with elephants. I'm talking about none other than the strongman, Hermann Gerner.
This is Play's Iron Roots,
A podcast dedicated to uncovering the strength legends, the training methods, and the stories around physical culture and iron history. I'm your host, Zach Evnesh. Grab yourself a protein shake, chalk up, and prepare to travel back in time through some of the most awe-inspiring stories of iron history. It's go time. Okay, guys, so I'm super fired up to talk to you about Gerner the Mighty, Hermann Gerner. And of course, I just mentioned he has wrestled with elephants. So he was one of those performing strongmen in those early days of the circus, early 1900s, where they would do feats of strength, strongman activities. And the interesting thing about this is that they had to be strong at all times. They didn't really get much warm up, and these odd feats that they would do, such as lifting a barbell up with people sitting inside of barrels inside of them, or being able to wrestle with the elephant. And it's been said that when he started wrestling with the elephant would come, put its legs on top of him. The elephant, when it was a baby, was about 700 pounds. But as the circus continued, the elephant grew up to 1,500 pounds. And they said for Gerner the Mighty, it was actually not a problem for him to hold up the elephant. They said the main problem was the elephant's hooves and skin was so rough and intense that it would just beat up the back and the skin of Gerner the Mighty. Now, this book was written around 1950, but Gerner the Mighty traveled the circus as a performing strongman, and he would not just do these feats of strength, but he also utilized different training tools and different training methods. So I want to share one of the big takeaways I got when reading this book and something I implemented at the Underground Strength Gym. And this method is called the Kettlebell Chain. It was one of the workouts that Hermann would follow out of his training studio, health club studio that they would call him back in the day. And he had this big lineup of kettlebells. I believe the first one was somewhere around 25 pounds, and then the heaviest kettlebell went up to 125. So the kettlebell chain worked like this. He would start with one arm and perform a kettlebell snatch. He would lower the kettlebell down, do a push press with the same arm, and then he would do a clean and press. Then he would go to the next weight and use the other arm. So for the first weight, left arm. For the next weight, right arm. So it would go to like 26 pounds, 32 pounds, 38 pounds. They went up in these like 5 to 8 pound increments. He would do that 3 exercise sequence all the way up to the heaviest kettlebell. And when I read this, I immediately thought to myself, we have to do this technique, this kettlebell chain at the Underground. And I started it with the athletes with 3 kettlebells who were more of the beginner. So maybe a 26 pound kettlebell, a 35, and a 44. Now our strongest athletes, including myself, especially when the shoulders were healthy, we would do something like 44, 53, 62. Then the next round, we would go a little bit heavier, but instead of just climbing all the way up in weight and then back and then stopping, we would go up the chain and then down the chain. And I remember us working up to the heaviest kettlebell, the 106 pound kettlebell. So it would be something like a 70 pound kettlebell, an 88 pound kettlebell, and a 106 pounder. So this kettlebell chain is something that you could utilize, and I've heard of it in kind of modern days called the ladder technique, where you do a rep of one weight, then you go to another weight and go heavier, and you just keep climbing the ladder in weight. And I've done it with dumbbells, with the college athletes. I've used it with kettlebells. I've even taken this chain method and used it with heavy sandbags or heavy sandballs. So you might load an 80 pound sandbag on a platform than a 100-pounder, than a 130 or a 150-pounder. So that kettlebell chain was originated from this book, Gerner the Mighty. And the one that I'm showing you on this video, for those of you listening, make sure you watch our videos because it's where I pull the photos from all these books that you can see them. And you can see them over at play.pro. But this book is one of the original books. And it shows photos of his gym with all the kettlebells lined up from light to heavy. And what's interesting is looking at the photos of Gerner the Mighty, you think this guy is something like 6'6", 6'8", but when they give you his measurements, he's 6'1", and there's photos of him just shy of 300 pounds with abs. This guy was built like a tank. I mean, looking at him, the size of him, it looked like he could have ran through a brick wall. And to give you some comparison, 6'1", just shy of 300 pounds. Most offensive linemen in the NFL are somewhere around that 6'6", 315. This guy's 6'1" in the early 1900s and like 295 pounds. And during his times in the circus, he was able to clean and press on the regular with a barbell over 300 pounds. And back then, the test of strength was not squat bench. It was not even deadlifting. It was weights that could go over your head. So in those early days, the deadlift was not really that popular. But Gerner the Mighty had a deadlift just shy of 800 pounds. And when he would deadlift, it was not just with an over-under grip. He would do things like a one-finger deadlift with each hand. Then he'd add a little weight and go 2 fingers and 3 fingers. And it's said that he's deadlifted over 700 pounds with one hand. This guy was just a straight up beast. Wrestling with elephants, putting up 300 pounds over his head, deadlifting close to 800 pounds in the early 1900s. It doesn't get much stronger than that. Here's the takeaway I want you to put to use from this episode is I want you to use the kettlebell chain or that chain technique of climbing from a lightweight up to a heavyweight with any kind of object. You could put out a bunch of bars for power cleans or deadlifting. You could put out sandbags or sandballs. I've used it with dumbbells for snatching. I remember implementing this with a wrestling team is I put out dumbbells starting somewhere around 30 or 35, and we laid out dumbbells in 10-pound jumps going up to 110. So I said, you're going to do a snatch with each arm, go to the next one. You keep going until you need to morph it into a clean and press. And then when you've hit your heaviest weight, you go back down and we start over and we go 3 rounds. So I've implemented that chain into dumbbell snatches, dumbbell clean and press. I want you guys to implement it. I want to hear how you're doing it. Maybe post a video on Instagram and tag me and tag Play on Instagram so I could see it. And I want you to find a way to pick up this book, Gerner the Mighty. There are reprints available online and of course through eBay. And let us know how you're putting the kettlebell chain or any of these chain methods to use. And that's it for this episode of the Iron Roots podcast brought to you by Play. Again, to watch these videos, to see the photos, and to get the visual of what I'm talking about, go to play.pro, Plae.pro, and we'll see you next time.